Hello, good morning. Welcome, everyone. I'm Councillor Chris Atwell, Chair of the Planning Committee. Limited public seating has been made available. However, this meeting is also being webcast to allow the public to attend remotely if they so wish. The public seating area is not in view of the camera used to webcast this meeting. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room, and public gallery by the stairwells, do not attempt to use the lifts. Assembled by Queen Victoria statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. May I draw everyone's attention to the fact that this meeting will be live streamed. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly they do not wish to be recorded. Please, can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when you're finished, otherwise you will remain on screen. Some of you might like that, but please remember to turn them off. During the voting, please can members keep their hands raised clearly until the number of votes have been stated. Okay, let's make some introductions. If I start with our Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Councillor Lee Hunt, Vice Chairman of the Planning Committee, and I'm also a councillor that represents Nelson Ward, which covers Stamshaw, Tipner, Buckland and North End.
Thank you, Lee. Good morning.
Councillor Roman Dent, Copner Ward.
Thank you. Good morning.
Asghar Shah, Goshen Councillor.
Thank you. Good morning, Shah.
Peter Candlish, Eastney and Craneswater.
Good morning, Peter. Thank you. Good morning, Mary.
Councillor Judith Smythe, St Jude Ward, Southsea.
Thank you, Judith.
Councillor John Smith, Eastern Craneswater Ward.
And thank you. Good morning, John. And officers.
Good morning, Ian Maguire, Assistant Director for Planning and Economic Growth.
Jane Didino, Local Democracy Officer.
Thank you, Jane.
And I'm Kieran Laven, one of the Council's planning solicitors.
And good morning, Kieran. Thank you. If I could ask anyone intending to speak during today's meetings to introduce themselves.
My name is Simon Hill and I'm here about 55 Bedhampton Road on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Carrie-Anne Wells, Agent for Applecore PDM, representing 4 of the items on the agenda today. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Members, any declarations of interest for today's meeting? Councillor Dent.
Powell Court Rose, item number 5. I actually know the applicant as an acquaintance.
So you're declaring a personal interest, but you'll remain for the item to vote. Yep.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest for today? Apologies. Received apologies from Councillor Brent. Any other apologies? I know Councillor Vernon Jackson will be arriving a little later. No? Okay. Minutes from the previous meeting, pages 5 to 16 in your pack.
Can I propose some as agreed, Chair?
Okay, thank you. Seconding. Okay, thank you. I shall sign those at the end of the meeting. Shall we move to today's substantive business? Quite a few to get through. Item 4 on the agenda, Montgomery Road. Ian?
Thank you, Chair. 22 Montgomery Road. This is an application for the change of use of a current 6-bed HMO to a 7-bed HMO. We'll just draw your attention, members, to 2 things quickly. The usual slide deck that I can refer to if need be. You can see it's an area with a significant number of existing HMOs and a fairly standard layout as we've come to see it for HMOs in Portsmouth. 2 things to highlight. This layout, this scheme has already gone through the appeal process once. It was dismissed on a technical reason associated with SBA mitigation. The applicant has resolved that by making the appropriate legal agreements available, so that's no longer a concern. And the inspector previously judged that the nature of the living environment created was appropriate for the future occupiers, so that matter, in officer's opinion, has been settled. To that end, I would just draw your attention to the SMAT, where at our pre-agenda we did highlight a small area of confusion in the table. Paragraph 5.5 of the report does list two of the rooms at 9.5 and 9.6 square metres, where normally members would expect to see them at 10 square metres, considering this has a combined living space of 23 square metres, and indeed the plans in the deck, as you can see here, annotate those rooms at 10. They've been rounded up, obviously. The table is the correct measurement by officers, but notwithstanding that, those room sizes, which range between 15.8 and 9.5, and the 23 square metre communal room space, has been found by the Planning Inspectorate to be a reasonable living environment, and we would consequently advise members to give significant weight to that conclusion. Overall, I would also generally mention this is one of a number of cases on today's agenda which officers are satisfied do not need planning permission, being a change of use between 6 and 7 bed HMOs. I won't take you back through the advice that they've previously been advised, but this is a matter of the materiality of that change of use. If members wish to come to a different conclusion, they will obviously need to provide a reason for that. My advice, and I'll give it once rather than going through it 10 times, is that conclusion should not be a pro forma of repeated statements. That approach has been found to be unacceptable by the Inspectorate, and costs were awarded against the council. It may well be that on the matter of fact and degree there is a material change of use. That is not officer's advice, but it's your judgment to apply. But a bespoke reasoning for that for each application should be identified and discussed as part of the minutes and the resolution the council needs to meet. As I say, officers satisfied no plan permission is required, and consequently the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you, Ian. Members, well, we've heard Mr Maguire's advice, but do we as a committee believe this requires planning permission? Councillor Hunt?
As clearly been established, the planning inspector is silent on this particular issue. So it's down to us, really and truly. So I think that the development is a change of use from the 6 to the 7. It is a material planning consideration. It's a bigger property, and so it has the effect to increase the use of the property and have an impact on nearby dwellings, their residential amenities, and those are all planning considerations. Whether the committee decides to look at that even more closely is a matter for the committee, not me. So I think it is a material change.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for the proposal that this requires planning permission? Councillor Smythe?
I think we normally say that it does require planning permission by reason of its impact on the environment and the neighbours and the environment, but also we ought to mention the impact on the living conditions of residents.
Okay, thank you. So, members, are you content that we need to discuss this application? Those in favour, please raise your hands.
It's unanimous that planning permission is required.
Thank you. So, do we have a form of words that that we can use for this application?
So I gave that to Ian just now, Chair.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
Well, so unfortunately I didn't take down those what I had from the seconder, which I assumed was the issue with it was by reason of impact on the environment, neighbours and the living condition of occupiers.
Along with that and together with the impact on the environment, parking, all the other things that are amenity-led, for those reasons it needs to be considered.
Okay, thank you.
And I would like to suggest the impact on residents.
As you said just now.
Okay, good.
Just one final, and I won't make the comment again, just to correct Councillor Hunt, the planning inspector haven't been silent on this matter. There have been probably half a dozen appeals now which we've lost on this judgment. There's been several appeals where they have chosen to be silent and thus haven't given us any guidance, but every time they have addressed this question, they have concluded on the merits of those cases a change from 6 to 7 or indeed 6 to 8 does not require plan permission, so it's not correct to suggest the inspectorate haven't given us guidance. They have, and we've reported that back to you. But to be clear, and final wording that you've given is that the conclusion of the committee this does require plan permission by reason of impact on the environment, parking, amenity, neighbours and living condition of occupiers.
Thank you, Mr Maguire.
And thank you for the clarification. Okay, members, in regard of this application, questions? Oh, deputations. Okay, that would be useful at this moment in time. Thank you, Karen.
Good morning. Firstly, as you all know, all C4 to sui generis applications have a blanket call into committee, which has been carried on by the new leader of the council. A recent appeal decision last week for a property on Francis Avenue has further strengthened the position of the inspectorate, who have again determined an increase of one person to an existing six-person HMO is not a material change. I respectfully request that you as members all consider if you will reassess the need for the blanket call-in of all these compliant applications. There have now been at least 10 decisions of this nature from different inspectors. I deal with many planning departments over Hampshire. Portsmouth City Council have demonstrated some of the longest delays when determining applications, as you will see for a couple of the items on today's agenda. This is not helped by the sheer workload these committee meetings take up in unnecessary time for the planning officers who are working hard to meet their determination deadlines. At Applecore, we are passionate about providing high-quality shared homes, and we have an ever-growing reputation for high-end design for HMOs for both students and young professionals. During recent years, Applecore has led the way in terms of designing high-quality HMO accommodation within the city, and we always advise our clients to provide the best possible space in terms of size standards, ultimately for the benefit of providing a great living environment for the occupants. During recent months, we've redesigned a number of properties designed by other HMO architects to reduce the number of bedrooms in order to increase the bedroom sizes for the occupant. We have found this results in happier tenants who stay in the property for longer and are more likely to integrate into the community around them. With this particular property, this application was first submitted in August 2021 and appealed for non-determination. The inspector concluded the development provides satisfactory living conditions for existing and future occupiers. However, at this time, the Section 111 for the mitigation of nitrates had not been completed, and the inspector dismissed on this basis only. On the 28th of November 2022, the application was then resubmitted to PCC on the 30th of November 2022. The applicant signed the Section 111 for nitrate mitigation and paid the required financial contribution. In my view, this application should have then been decided by a delegated authority and approved due to the previous inspectorate decision. Instead, the applicant has waited a further 10 months for a committee date. The application has now been in the planning system for over 2 years. The application has now again been appealed for non-determination for the second time, however with costs sought this time against the council. As the appeal is yet to receive a start letter, it's my understanding if you decide to approve today, it's within the gift of the applicant to withdraw the appeal and let the decision you make today stand. Within the property, all the bedrooms meet the required sizes. The property provides 23 square metres of communal area, which again exceeds the 22.5 square metre requirement, with the addition of a WC for convenience at the ground floor level, and all of the bedrooms benefit from an ensuite. The application fully complies with policy. The previous inspector is satisfied the development does not conflict with policy, and the planning officer has also recommended approval. I ask you all to fully support this application today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, questions? Councillor Hunt?
Yeah, Mr Maguire, when something goes from 6 to 7 bedrooms in an area like Montgomery Road, which is already oversubscribed with HMOs, one of the most densely populated areas of HMOs anywhere in the city, and Southsea has got something like 3,600 maybe HMOs. I mean, it is an enormous number. Where does the council or the local planning authority stand when a succession of these sui generis changes comes and the cumulative impact is that you've actually added another one? So you do 7 in a row, you do 7 in an area, which are sui generis, from 6 to 7, you've actually increased it by another HMO, when our policy restricts, well, our policy would not allow it otherwise, i.e. the 10% rule. How come this can be allowed to happen?
two answers, if I may. Your policy does allow it, because your policy does allow for an increase in the size of HMOs judged on amenity. That's to quote your SPD. So if there is a particular reason to think that one more person in an area is going to have a material impact on amenity, then plan permission can be refused if permission is required, as has been the conclusion members have reached in this case. Planning is an incremental process. I'm unapologetic about that because that's the system that's been introduced for many decades. Yes, there will be a change to places over time as small individual steps occur, and that will make alterations to places for both good and potentially bad. Those small places, though, are not something you can individually resist because we have to deal with the absolutes of materiality in most cases, both material changes of use and substantive and realistic harms. This council has an inability to demonstrate a 5-year land supply. That means there is a significant weight given over to providing new homes. The current government has talked many times through very many emerging documents, they've yet to actually change anything substantive, about gentle densification, the benefits of adding just a little bit more rather than dropping in a whole new community or new town or whatever. So adding one more occupier into an area is one more person that's housed with limited impact. From a practical example, and I won't take you through great detail here, as we know, this is an area of 40% for HMOs within the 50-metre radius. So that's 32 out of 80 dwellings. If every one of those HMOs had 6 people in it, and every one of those 48 C3 dwellings had the average occupancy of 2.4. That would give you a estimated bedroom numbers of around 307. So adding one more bedroom would change the HMO mix from the current 62.5% beds in this area to 62.8%, 0.3% of the beds. I don't see that as a material impact. So, and that's the application in front of you. Clearly, you do 100 of them, that's 100 beds, it's 100 people housed, that's a big benefit, but that is a different mixture of demographics within the area. But in an area that is 40% HMOs, I would argue that impact would be fairly hard to note, and it's actually looking at how you get those mixes in those areas that aren't as issues. So when you're around 9, 10, 11, 12%, you're more likely to see that sort of impact than you would be in an area of this nature.
Right, if I may, as ever, highly instructive, enormously grateful for that quality of a reply. The thing I suppose I want to really ask is, I suppose the nub of the question was, are we allowed to consider cumulative impact?
There's not a straightforward answer to that. Clearly, it is not unreasonable to consider it, but you must assess the application on its merits. So there will be a straw that breaks the camel's back argument, which is a cumulative impact argument, and you have that in your policy. If this was a new HMO taking a 9.9% mix to a 10.1% mix, you would say, well, no, that is the straw that breaks the camel's back. That's crossing a threshold that we've set as a reasonable mix. That is a cumulative impact assessment. Adding one more bed into an existing HMO, so there's no additional HMOs in the area. I think the only way you can use your HMO mix policy in accordance with your SPD is to identify whether that one more person has a material impact on amenity. That's much harder to do on a cumulative impact, because obviously if you're arguing that every HMO occupier is harmful to amenity, because that's your argument, there's an amenity problem with them, then we're considering there's so many, the majority of people living in this area are HMO occupiers, why is this one going to make any difference? So cumulative impact doesn't have the same impact on amenity as a mixed process would do when you're talking about an area that is significantly mixed with HMOs, or indeed an area that has very few HMOs on the other end of the spectrum. It's only in that sort of tipping point where that becomes particularly relevant to any discussion. So cumulative impact is not out with, it's the basis of your 10% policy, but it has little applicability to an amenity judgment for adding one more person, changing a lounge to a bedroom or a study room to a bedroom.
Again, thank you very much.
Judith.
I've got 2 or possibly 3 questions of a detailed nature. First of all, where is the cycle storage, and how are people going to get their bicycles into it if it's at the back?
It is at the back, and they would take the bicycles through the house.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it's buzzing.
Let's try that. Okay. Yeah, it is in the rear garden is the area they've indicated for cycle storage, and it would be taken through the house and out the rear double doors.
Are we sure it could get round the corner in the beginning of the rather narrow kitchen?
Yes, I would say obviously the illustrative kitchen layout there does make it a bit tighter than an alternative layout, but yes, we are satisfied you can manoeuvre a bike, being a transient interference with other residents through that space.
I think it's necessary to see on the plan where it is, because of course sometimes there's a back access, and I think these plans have got more and more minimal as time has gone on. For that reason also, I would have liked to have seen an existing plan with the 6 bedrooms. Could you explain to me what's the change? Is it the bedroom 6?
The existing plans are, of course, on the website. That is the existing floor plans. It is the front lounge room. You can see there, bottom left of the imagery, and that is changing into bedroom number 7.
So that is the reason why the bedroom number 6 is substandard, is that right?
Well, no, these rooms aren't changing size. Bedroom numbers 6 and 7 have always been this size, 9.5 and 9.4. Bedroom 6 has been 9.5 and lounge has been 9.7, that's now bedroom 7.
Did they have the 2 loos there then? Why did they have the 2 loos there?
Yeah, so the current layout is a ground floor shower room accessed from the corridor. That would be altered by relocating the door to be an ensuite shower room accessed not from what would be the lounge, but now from bedroom 7. But the room size do not change.
You can see that my logic of thinking that we needed to see the previous plans by that, because when we come to comments, I'll make a comment about the room size there. My next question is, why are we calling it an ensuite loo on the top floor when you have to shimmy past the staircase used by somebody else to get to bedroom 2?
That is the description the applicant has used to annotate the plans, and consequently we've utilised it for clarity within the table.
I think we need to have a little bit more clarity. It's not ensuite. If you have to shimmy past the stairs in the nude or in United, then you're not.
We can disagree on the definition. Yeah.
I just would like us to be more accurate in the future, please. Thank you very much.
Members.
No, one more question.
Sorry, one second, please. Sorry.
Sorry, may I just take 1 second for a technical issue? 1 second.
Sorry, just if you can hold that thought for just one moment. You're very telegenic. Okay, all right.
Well, once.
Councillor Hunt.
Just to go back over it, Mr Maguire, I don't mind not being seen, Councillor. Just go back over it, Mr
It's a
Maguire.
matter of public record, isn't it? It's not, I don't think it's...
Well,
We can hear you. We can hear you.
I need to be 2 metres away from people at the moment, thank you. Just to go over the issue, Mr Maguire. So this is an application that's been considered by the planning inspector, and that the planning inspector has looked at it and has said that it is completely correct. Is that right?
Yes, the planning inspector in their previous looked at it, identified that there was a question whether those 2 rooms of 9.5 or 9.6 were adequate in light of the 23 square metre communal space, found nevertheless that was a reasonable living environment and the scheme was acceptable on all planning merits, barring the mitigation to the SPA, which the applicant has since then, with this new application, now resolved.
So, by and large, in the inspector's eyes, this matter has been resolved and he sent it back for us to top and tail. Or she,
the inspector resolved it but refused it. The applicant has resubmitted it because, by and large, the inspector found it to be acceptable, so that you can now move ahead to determine the application.
All right, thank you.
Comments?
Yeah, I'd like, if I may.
Well,
ladies first.
Judith indicated first.
Are we on comments now? Thank you. I think this one's tricky. I know that there's a lot of difficulty with the number of people living in HMOs in this area, but I don't think we can do anything about it. Given the inspector's comments, I think it's very difficult for us to refuse on the grounds of being too small. I would like it minuted that I'm very concerned about bedroom 6 and bedroom 7 because they are smaller than our standards. I'm a bit surprised that we couldn't see designs that showed those ensuite bathrooms on the ground floor a tiny bit smaller, so that didn't happen. We often approve planning applications where the room sizes seem adequate, but in fact have a bit of a sort of internal corridor, which means that they're kind of the usable space is quite small. So with a heavy heart, I think I would like to propose approval, subject to conditions that include the provision of cycle storage, if it's not already in there, that include the mitigation and the other conditions that are needed, the development within a certain period, and any other conditions that we recommend, and I'd like to approve that.
Okay, thank you, Judith. Any other comments? Anybody wish to second?
Yeah, no. I would like to make a comment, if I may, at the moment. So we already have future sight of what a planning inspector decision is likely to be. But this does not alter my concern about HMOs in this area in particular, which is already oversubscribed. We've heard the evidence this morning from the officer that this area is 40% HMOs already. Now, whether or not anybody likes HMOs is not relevant at all, because this is a planning hearing. But there is no question at all that this is a government-driven policy, as we heard from the officer earlier on, about the need to increase accommodation within areas which are already intensely residential, to add that little bit more, which is what was said. So this fills me with huge concern. But doesn't only fill me with huge concern, it fills thousands of people across Portsmouth with huge concern. Now, I go on Facebook a lot, and lately people have been ranting and raving at me for allowing HMOs. Anybody who knows my record knows that I go into these great detail. I'm being accused of taking brown envelopes, for heaven's sake, for passing these HMOs through, but I don't pass them. But I drive around in a 22-year-old VW with 280,000 miles on the clock. If I was taking I know, Kieran, if I was taking brown envelopes, I'd be running around in a Rolls Royce. So I want people to know that the planning committee is shackled by government policy in particular, so that when we consider these things, we have to look at the law, we have to look at material planning facts, and we have to take all those things into account. So when the developers come here and say, or the applicants, with the greatest respect, Karen, come here and tell us that we should not be doing these sorts of things, we should be hearing and putting things through, we should not be bringing them to the committee. The planning committee here is already in disrepute amongst the population of Portsmouth for even considering HMOs. Now, that is a very bad place to be. But it is not our fault. We are constrained by policy handed down from central government. Now, I need to make that statement, because if you go on my Facebook page, you'll see all these accusations. They're not pleasant, and I deal with them with humour. I don't get cross. Having said all of that, I cannot see, with the future sight of the planning inspector's decision, because we have a bit of a conflict going here between the planning inspectors and us, what we can do about this today. So I will wait and see what the rest of the committee have to say about it.
Okay, thank you. Kieran, would you like to just remind us of how we should approach
My
these things?
comment, having heard all that, and I'm very sorry to hear that you're having well, robust discourse, perhaps would be an appropriate euphemism, with members of the public, Councillor. You know, and you highlighted in part of your speech there, that you are concerned with material planning considerations and the application of planning policy. Not everything you said there was entirely material, but I do appreciate where you're coming from in terms of pressure you may be under. If you have any concerns with any of the material you're receiving or any accusations that are being made against you with regard to impropriety, please speak to Peter Bolf about it, as I'm sure you will.
Thank you very much. I have considered that, but I'm not going to go that far because I deal with it myself.
Okay, all right, members. And yes, we spend a great deal of time and thought and energy looking at these applications, and we consider each one on its own merit. Okay, any other comments on Montgomery Road? Well, we don't have a seconder at the moment. Judith has proposed. Peter?
Chair, I had two brief comments. I won't go through the same points that Councillor Lee Hunt has made. On this specific application, and it may well apply on others, since the planning inspector has approved it and the guidelines exist, I'm not going to fight them. I do note that the living space, the ratio of the length to the width makes it not very friendly, but if it's been approved, then I'm not going to fight it. And secondly, I also have questions on a lot of these applications about the credibility of access and use of bicycles. But I remember that at the last meeting we said we were going to have a discussion with the transport officer to understand that better.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I shall second the proposal to move the officer's recommendation on this occasion.
Chairman, apologies. I believe the proposal was to, because the officer's recommendation is a non-conditional permission, is to grant with conditions of time limit, approved plan, cycle store, and the necessary conditions and legal agreements for mitigation to the SPA.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just going to say that. We need the conditions to be added.
Yeah, because it's unconditional at the moment.
And I think technically, just point of information, this hasn't been approved by the inspector, but he or she have advised that it would have been approved if they hadn't had another reason to do it. We must need to be quite careful of our language here.
Okay.
Thank you. I was careful about my language. I said we have foresight of the thinking of the planning inspector, Councillor Smythe. Perhaps you should listen to what I'm saying.
I wasn't referring to what you said at all, Councillor.
Okay, all right, okay.
I merely wanted to say that we do have to look at its own merits, and as I said in my statement when I proposed we accepted this, in this particular case, it's okay in my mind that we've got very slightly substandard room sizes. That's very important, because our policy is something we've adhered to very, very carefully, and I wasn't in any way referring to what Councillor Hunt had said.
Okay, all right, we'll move on. We have a proposal on the table. Unless there's anything else, we'll move to the vote. Those in favour of granting permission with the conditions attached? Against? Abstentions? Okay.
And the motion passes with planning permission approved. 6 in favour, 1 against, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Kieran. Okay, let's move on to Powers Court Road.
Thank you, Chairman. 253 Powers Court Road. This is one of 4 cases you have today which do need plan permission, so we can skip through that part. This is a change of use from its last lawful use as a C3 dwelling to a 7-bed HMO. Slightly different, as I say, but this is because this is one of those applications where the agents have, and I can't give you a reasoning why, but why the agents have already sought a plan permission to change the use of the dwelling into either a C3 or C4. That was granted in February. You can see from these photographs it's still under construction, so it's never yet been used as a C4, so its last lawful use is C3. They've come back in to now seek an alternative layout with a 7th bedroom. So that's the existing floor plans. You can see there is a central large utility room with a WC in the middle of the ground floor there. That would become, under the new scheme, a 7th bedroom, annotated bedroom 2, in this case with an ensuite bathroom. It meets all of your size standards as detailed in the table, and while it already has permission to be an HMO, that is an 8.7% mix within the area, so it meets your mixed and balanced communities policy as well. The recommendation is therefore to grant, subject to conditions that are laid out at the end of the report.
Thank you. No deputations.
Before we go any further, to be clear, Councillor Dent, this was the item that you declared your personal interest in on, wasn't it? Yeah.
But you'll be taking part.
Personal interest, yeah.
It's personal interest. Okay, members. Councillor Smythe.
I've got a question about where is the bicycle storage, please? And is the back access to the property, for example?
And the same answer, the cycle storage is in the rear. A condition is recommended to ensure that that is provided, and bicycles, like every other case, is taken through the house.
We need to know that because we need to know if there's space for it and whether there's alternative access around the back. So it doesn't show that on the plans, so that would need to be recorded. Thank you.
Sorry, have we done the introduction to it?
Yes.
That was quick. I was writing at the time.
You have a question?
So this is a change of use from a C3 to a 7-person bedroom house and multiple occupation, a sui generis, straight up to sui generis, so that's more than 6 people. Is that correct, Mr. Maguire?
Well, in this case, the proposal is for 7 people. There are 7 bedrooms, but so it is not for more than 6 people. They've made a specific application to change it for a 7-bed HMO.
And there are no representations from the applicant or anything like that?
Sorry, there are no deputations on this item.
And could you just go over the representations for me involved in this matter? Are there any at all?
Paragraph 4.1 details the representations.
It seems Councillor Swan's even given up, not here today. All right, Mr. Chairman, that's it from me then.
Okay, thank you. I know Councillor Swan is at work today.
Good for him.
People do have other responsibilities. Councillor Smythe.
There's another question. This is in 253 Powers Court Road. We don't seem to have the diagram showing the number of HMOs in the area on this particular submission. Please could you outline for us the density of HMOs in the Powers Court within 50? It is on there, it's not in our pack. Thank you. If we could just have a quick look at that, that would answer my question.
Just as mentioned in my presentation, this is in paragraph 5.4. It is 8.7%, 8.69%, 6 HMOs out of 69 properties.
Thank you very much. I think it helps to have the diagram that we're used to because it does just show us the exact configuration and so forth. Thank you.
I think you're right, actually. Okay, members, comments? I'll move officer's recommendation.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Smythe. Unless there is anything else, we'll move to the vote. Those in favour, please indicate. Against? Abstentions?
Planning permission is granted in accordance with the officer's recommendation. 6 in favour, 1 against, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Kieran. Margate Road.
Thank you, Chairman. 32 Margate Road. This is another application that is a 6-bed HMO to a 7-bed. So officers have looking at the merits of it are satisfied that the additional 1 bedroom does not require planning permission. Members will have to come to a conclusion on that matter. Looking at the application, it's a long-established HMO, as you can see there. to prejudge Councillor Tamara's question, while there is some opportunity for access to the rear, in this case we don't have details submitted with the application as to the rights of access, so we would presume access is taken from the front of the property. This is an area with a significant number of HMOs already, as detailed in the report. Plans are a little bit fuzzy, apologies for that. As you can see here, it's the ground floor front lounge, which is becoming a seventh bedroom in this case. The room sizes are all laid out in paragraph 5.6 and do, on first reading, meet all of the necessary minimum standards. I say on first reading because there's one small anomaly on this in that a couple of the bedrooms, you can see they're bedroom 3 and bedroom 4, actually have, and I will just show it if I can on the screen, actually have shower cubicles and a sink illustrated within the bedroom. This is quite an old HMO, so not a sort of traditional ensuite, but an area of the bedroom given over to ablutions and sanitary ware. We've made an estimate of those sizes and taken them off of the issues to see if there is still an adequate 10 plus square metre space to relax that would have justified that lower floor space if plan permission had been required, and we've done those alternative judgments you can see there in that table, and we're satisfied even if one was to discount some of that area, because while it is obviously an amenity for the resident, you couldn't put an armchair in the shower cubicle, so you wouldn't be necessarily recreating in that space. But even having discounted that area, it is still over the necessary minimum size thresholds, and consequently, all in combination, the scheme is making a more than adequate residential living environment for the future 7 occupants. And if plan permission had been needed, we would have consequently recommended it for approval.
Thank you. No deputations. Members, any questions on this application? Councillor Smythe first.
First again this time.
You have the mic.
Okay. What I am asking is, do we really think that one ground floor WC, in which I don't think the space is used very efficiently, and a second floor, the first floor, very small shower room, is enough effectively for 4 rooms to share? Standards of HMOs have gone up in that most are en suite nowadays. I know that students and professionals like that. I'm wondering if in this case we really think that 4 people occupying 4 bedrooms can satisfactorily get on with a ground floor WC and a first floor shower room that I'm just trying to find it on here. Yeah. And then there are two are en suite, but it means that there are did the planning officers and do we think that the lavatories and shower rooms are sufficient?
Yes, they don't need that many. In fact, your adopted standards require 2 bathrooms, 2 toilets for a 6 or 7 bed HMO. In this case, we have a ground floor toilet, a first floor bathroom, and a second floor shower room. So they have the 2 bathrooms and the 2 toilets, all in accordance with the licensing standards, which are obviously imported into the planning standards. So yes, it is more than adequate to meet your standards as prescribed by licensing, which make your way into planning guidance.
All right, then, that we've got the table isn't entirely accurate. It's a second floor shower room, I think, isn't it? And a first floor bathroom. Is that correct?
Yes, that is right. It should be SF shower room and FF bathroom.
So that needs to be corrected on the plans. Thank you for your reply.
Okay. Comments?
Yeah, so we no longer see the East South Sea Neighbourhood Residents Forum coming here to complain about these sorts of issues. So I guess they've kind of given up because the strong arm of government comes along and rolls us all over. And but I don't want this committee to be seen as a rubber stamp for these sorts of issues, which is why we consider them, which is why we oblige them to come to the committee, whether whether anyone likes it or not, that's why we do it. My concern, again, is the cumulative impact. We considered one in this area earlier on, and I think, Mr. Maguire, you said it was something like 0.3% increase. The one, was it 0.3 or 0.03% increase? I can't remember what you said. I thought it was 0.3. When you did
So the change in bedroom numbers, if one was to take 6 occupancy and 2.4 occupancy, would be 0.3.
Yeah, okay. So if we do this one, it's become 0.6, and you can see where my... Go on, Ms. Maguire.
No, this is a different 50 square metre area, of course. So this actually has more HMOs in it than the other one. So there are... this is a 53.2% mix of HMOs being 42 out of 79. If I was to apply the same mathematical arithmetic, just for fun, of 2.4 occupiers for every dwelling and 6 occupiers from every HMO, that would give you 340.8 occupiers, bed spaces, in the area, and that would change the number of HMO bed spaces by adding this one from 73.9 to 74.2. So again, a 0.3 increase, but you're already up at 3/4 of all beds in this area are HMOs. So again, I would argue a indiscernible impact on amenity, and thus no reason to withhold planning permission if planning permission is required.
Indeed, and thank you very much again. You give Carol Vorderman a run for her money, I've no doubt about it at all. But the point is, I wasn't talking about 50 metres squared, I'm talking about the area of that particular area, St Thomas Ward or whatever you like, or the area, and parts of Southsea too. So it's the cumulative impact, this constant adding of a room, and it goes on year in and year out, month in and month out, and rotation in and rotation out. So it does add new if we went back over the record and looked, you'd probably find there's another dozen or so HMOs in an area that's already oversubscribed by the addition of one room. But I understand the policy, the law, and how we're shackled in all of this. But it is that cumulative impact on residential amenities in areas like this. I mean, it is a big strain. We see people constantly complaining about rubbish in the gardens. The council promises to deal with that, but it's not possible to deal with it because you have to go find a landlord, you have to go sort it out. So to a degree, the industry brings this upon itself, as I've said that many times before. So I've made that general comment. For me, the cumulative impact is very important, and so I shall listen to what the committee has to say.
Okay, thank you. You make the correct point about it's wider than the area is bigger than the 50-metre radius, and you know, as elected members, we're mindful of that, aren't we? The committee's job is to consider material planning considerations within the constraints, shackles, I think was your words, that we're given to operate with. Okay, any other comments, members? Comments, yeah. Okay. No? Okay, I shall move the officer's recommendation.
Chairman, we haven't had any commentary around the need for planning permission. This is one that doesn't require planning permission in the opinion of officers.
Indeed, so the words...
Indeed, so sorry, yes. We need that stick, Kieran, to remind us which does and doesn't. Sorry, yes, do we believe this requires
so the due to cumulative impact, which we have heard...
One second, Lee, I think we have to vote first. Do we believe this application requires planning permission?
You need to articulate why it needs planning permission.
He's asking us to provide the reasons, Chair.
Well, we haven't established whether this particular one requires.
Chair, the MO that you've been using to date has been to discuss the individual merits of why this individual HMO increasing from its previous occupancy to 7 would need plan permission. That specific wording can then be captured and voted upon.
Sorry, yes.
Yes, so we got a bit ahead of ourselves,
yes,
which I stopped us earlier on. So if I may, is it right, Mr. Chair, to carry on? All right. That the proposal is considered needs planning permission because it's an increase by 1 room. The cumulative impact will have an adverse impact on residential amenities and so on, and the environment, the effect will be to increase the intensity of the use of the building within a very built-up area. We've heard the evidence from the officer, it's already something like 54%. So, I mean, ipso facto, it needs planning permission.
Thank you. Apologies. Yes, some of our conversations are taking a little while. Lose track of where we are. Okay. Yep. Members, do we agree that this application requires planning permission? Those in favour, please indicate. Okay.
Unanimous agreement that planning permission is required.
Okay. Members, done the debate. Comments? Anybody wish to move the motion? I should move the officer's recommendation.
Against, Chair, no.
Clarity, the officer's recommendation is non-conditional, so in that circumstance it would be with conditions which would be time limit approved plans, cycle storage and the necessary requirements for SPA mitigation.
So I'm going to get better at this as we go along.
Mitigation, presumably. Do we need to put mitigation in here? And mitigation, please. And cycle storage. Yep, as conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
So that was an addition of cycle storage, and I think that's captured in paragraph 6.2. Is it required? Does it already have adequate cycle storage in? I don't know.
So there is cycle storage, and I have just checked through the plans, and just to clarify an earlier issue, one can assume they'll take bikes to the front. They may well do. There is actually rear access on this one as well, but I can't vouchsafe we do not have plans of the cycle store, so a condition on cycle storage would not be out of place in this case. So the 4 conditions as listed earlier: time limit approved plan, cycle store, and necessary steps of mitigation for the SPA.
Okay, so with those conditions, you're happy with those, and you're seconding?
I'll second it with those conditions, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anything else from anyone else? Peter, were you indicating?
I was about to second, but Judith got in there first.
All right, thank you. Okay. Unless there's anything else, members, those in favour of granting planning permission with the conditions we've just discussed, please indicate. Against?
So the vote was 6 in favour and 2 against, so planning permission is granted.
Thank you, Kieran. Darlington Road.
Thank you, Chairman. 33 Darlington Road. This is an application for change from a 6-bed HMO to a 7-bed HMO. So again, the one that officers are satisfied plan permission is not required on its own merits. Members will have to come to their own conclusion. We've got about a quarter of properties in this area are HMOs already, but it's considered that one additional person has a negligible impact on amenity in this case as well. Fairly standard layout. As you can see, a central lounge there on the ground floor, the left of the imagery, changing to bedroom 7 in this case, and some tidying up, I think, elsewhere as well. Again, we have no direct details of the cycle store. It would be in the rear garden, and vehicles and bicycles will be taken through the house to it, though we do have a deputation on this item, so the deputy may wish to elucidate on that if they wish. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I know that we've got a deputation that's going to be read out by Councillor Vallely on behalf of Councillor Gerarda.
Thank you, Chair. Written deputation from Councillor Charlotte Gerarda, Labour Councillor for Central South Sea. I'm providing a deputation in opposition to the application to increase the 33 Darlington Road property to be a 7-bed HMO. For over a year, residents down the street have... Too many phones. For over a year, residents down the street have raised complaints with me regarding the impact multiple HMOs is having on the street. Residents have raised concerns about increased noise, pressure on amenities and street cleanliness. Central South Sea, more broadly, is a very densely populated ward, and increased HMOs of this kind are causing an increase in disputes between neighbours and contributing to a decline in the street cleanliness and increased demands and limited parking. I'm sharing this deputation to represent all the residents I've spoken to with or supported with casework in Darlington Road and request that this application is rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputation from the agent.
Firstly, I wanted to pick up on some concerns from Councillor Lee Hunt about the cumulative impact of the larger HMOs in this area. I'm also a member of the Portsmouth District Landlords Association, and every week now it's becoming more and more apparent that the smaller HMOs are actually being sold back to family homes. So as the HMOs are increasing, the smaller HMOs become less viable due to utilities. There's some tax implications. The additional licensing scheme is putting further pressure on the smaller landlords, and more family homes going back into stock. So I would like to think that this would be then lower the percentage in those areas. So hopefully that allays some concerns. With this particular property, it provides 7 bedrooms for single use, which meets the larger 10 square metre requirement. 4 of the rooms benefit from an ensuite, and a further 3 bedrooms share 2 shower rooms and a separate WC, again exceeding the sanitary requirement. As all the bedrooms are over 10 square metres, the property provides 23 square metres, again slightly exceeding the requirement. The application complies with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan, and also complies with Housing Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning Document 2019. The Plan Officer has recommended this fully compliant application for approval today, and I ask you to fully support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members?
Do we have to decide whether it needs planning commission?
Does this require?
May I go ahead? All right. Thanks, Mr. Maguire. This is an increase by 1 bedroom. The cumulative impact, which I've been arguing this morning, is important, and we can consider that as a material planning consideration. We heard that from Mr. Maguire earlier on. But the increase from 6, I think it's from a multiple occupation class C4 to 7 person does need to be considered because the potential effect is to increase the intensity and the overdevelopment in the area, which has an adverse impact on residential amenities, notwithstanding what Karen has said, and I've seen that and I'm aware of that, but this isn't reflected in the register as yet that I'm aware of. So it's a highly built up area, already oversubscribed, as we heard from Mr. Maguire earlier on, with 25% of properties in multiple occupation or shared accommodation, whichever way you want to refer to it. And this does have an impact on residents through parking, as we heard Councillor Gerrard say earlier on, and other councillors have argued, noise, waste, sewage and amenity impact, and the SPA, of course. Well, we had a big argument in the last planning committee about poo going down the toilets.
Members, do we believe this application requires plan permission? Those in favour? Okay.
Who is your seconder? Right. And that was a unanimous vote in favour.
Okay, members, questions?
Can I ask which room it is changing and from what to the bedroom, please?
As shown on the plans, it was the middle room, the lounge on the ground floor, turning into bedroom number 7.
May I further ask, is that every single room in the house now, apart from a communal space, is a bedroom? Is that correct, Mr. Maguire?
Bathrooms, yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Members, questions? Comments?
Do you know, it's just not normal, because we say, or the policy says, this is shared accommodation, people living all together in shared accommodation almost as a family. That's what gets argued sometimes, that these people are like families, these residents, and it is not the residents. I have no issue with residents at all. It is not normal to have every single room in the house, bar one, as a bedroom. Now, there will be examples of it, I'm sure, and Ian may have some to hand, but it just isn't normal. So what we're doing is we're changing the character in these areas that are already oversubscribed. I accept our policy, and I understand, and I think the policy, the 10% rule to create mixed and balanced communities is a fair and proper one, and it was hard won. Even though people keep trying to say it's useless, it isn't. It was hard won, and it's a good policy to protect regular areas. What has happened in these other areas that we're talking about this morning so far is that the horses bolted from the stable years back. But now we're adding to it by this cumulative impact of one more room, one report after the other, and it's creeping, it's insidious. It's an insidious attack on the neighbourhoods of where people want to live. Charlotte Garada described some of the symptoms, as it were, of what happens subsequently where HMOs are already oversubscribed. So this cumulative impact should be a major concern. Quite how we tackle it, I don't know. We've done everything I think that we can around Margate Road, around these other areas of high HMOs. So I'm not quite, I don't know what the answer is, because I don't think that there really is one right now. So that's my comment, Chair. Obviously, I'm concerned about the cumulative impact. If the officer wants to comment on it again, he can.
Yes. Okay. And as this is difficult, isn't it? This is difficult, and I think if Councillor Van Jackson were here, he might say it's important that we don't give people false hope that we're able to get results that appeal, and then burden the Portsmouth taxpayer with costs. It's you've said it very eloquently about the problem we're in, the situation we're in.
I thought we're still on questions, Chair.
We are on questions.
My question is about bicycle sheds. I'm sorry I'm so boring on that today, but I do see that the bicycles, if there is no rear access, which I don't know about that, would have to come right the way around and round this very uncomfortable dogleg in the actual active, rather narrow kitchen. I understand that isn't necessarily a reason for approving planning, but there is a side door here, which is good. Could I ask the question about where is the cycle storage and is it adequate? And could we put a condition, if we needed to, on to ensure that it is?
Having concluded that plan permission is required, obviously conditions can be imposed. These are the images we have of the schemes. You can see from the bottom left image, it doesn't appear that they have yet constructed their cycle storage, so a standard cycle storage condition would be opposed. There also appears to be no rear access, so I guess, as with all the others, taking the bicycle through the kitchen would appear to be the standard approach.
So yes, we could put on a condition, then we should, I think, if we get to that stage. Thank you very much. My other question in this particular one is I see, is that bin storage we see on the plan, yes, at the very bottom, 2 bins, is that sufficient, given that there appears to be a history of overflowing bins in this particular property?
Yes, for a 7-bed HMO, the waste services would provide 1 240-litre bin for residual, 1 240-litre bin for recycling. So 2 bins, same for a 6-bed, same for a standard family home.
It's 2 large bins, one for recycling and one for domestic waste.
Residual waste, yes.
Yeah. And thank you very much.
Members, questions? Councillor Dent.
Yeah, I'm just a bit concerned. It keeps every single one so far this morning. Communal living space is nowhere near the size it says, because it's a kitchen as well. The communal living space on this one is roughly about 12 square metres, and then you've got a kitchen that is 15 square metres. So we keep saying it's communal living space. It's not. You know, the communal living space is tiny for 7 people.
And you know, these are questions we have to ask ourselves about usable space. Okay. Any other questions before we move to comments on this application? Councillor Smythe.
Just a point of information, the kitchens are included as communal space, and this one at least has merits of not having a door in the kind of cosy corner at the end of the extension.
With the...
I agree it's too small.
Yeah. Okay, I shall move the officer's recommendations with the condition that has already been mentioned by Councillor Smythe. Councillor Smith, you're seconding?
Yeah, I wish to refuse, please, Chair. I mean, I developed this argument at the last committee about communal space, and in this case, Councillor Dent is completely correct. It's not necessarily the overall size of the communal space. What we've got here is I accept that our policy says that, because I learned this last time, and apologies, Ms Maguire, I should have been better informed at that time. But what has happened is we have got, what you do is you have the communal space, and then you put into that communal space the kitchen units. And if you measure up the kitchen units, they're going to be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 or 8 1,000 millimetre length cupboards. So you abstract them clearly from the communal space because nobody can sit in them. They are utility space. They are for cooking, they are for cleaning, they are for standing in, they are not for sitting down in and talking to your friends, although obviously sometimes we have beers in the kitchen, all that sort of thing. So the communal space standard is not up to scratch. So therefore, in my opinion, the configuration of the communal space does not meet the City Council standards. It is too small for a 7-bed like this, and therefore it will have an adverse impact on the future intended occupiers or the residents in this property. So for that reason, I would move to refuse, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt. Anybody else? Need somebody to second it. If you're... Yes, Councillor Dent. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Anything else before we move to the vote?
Just to be clear, you were endorsing the 6.2, paragraph 6.2 conditions in addition to the bicycle store, Chair? Yes. Yes, you take the proposal to grant planning permission will be taken first.
Okay. Judith, do you want to
Got the condition about cycle storage.
Yes.
Added to that, and the mitigation and so forth. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I think Councillor Smith got in before you. Okay, so members, those in favour of moving the officer's recommendation with additional... Sorry, with...
To grant planning permission with the discussed conditions.
Thank you, Kieran. I haven't had enough coffee this morning. Okay, those in favour? Against? And abstentions? Okay. The motion to refuse on the grounds...
No, you don't. Sorry, the motion is passed to grant planning permission for...
What were the numbers?
I got 4 in favour, 2 against, and I can only counted 1 abstention. So somebody failed to even abstain, I think.
2 abstentions.
It was 2 abstentions,
Yes.
I apologise, doesn't make any difference. So the motion passes and planning permission is granted with conditions.
Thank you very much, Cleveland Road. Councillor Vernon Jackson's joined us. Any declarations of interest?
No, I'm just interested to see how far you've got through the agenda. Are we on the last application?
We're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. Okay. Cleveland Road.
49 Cleveland Road. This is again one that is a change of use from a 6-bed to a 7-bed. So officer's recommendation is that plan permission is not required. Members will have to come to a judgment to that. As you can see, this is a area which has a significant, apologies, different layouts we've used here. It's harder to spot on this one. But this has a 43.8% mix of HMOs here in Cleveland Road and Southsea. The application seeks to change that ground floor middle bedroom from a lounge to bedroom number 7. The oddity of this scheme that I would point out to members compared to a standard compliance with policy is that we have a number of bedrooms below 10 square metres, the smallest being 7.83, bedroom number 6. Bedroom 7 is in fact one of the larger ones, 11.27, but as there are a number of bedrooms below 10 square metres, the usual expectation would have a 34 square metre communal living space. This actually has a 29.21 square metre communal living space, so if plan permission was required, members will need to give consideration to the adequacy of that space. Officers have looked at this carefully and do note, in addition to that communal living space, there is a 4.79 square metre utility room provided, which obviously means that several of the units, and particularly the noisier ones, as Councillor Hunt was referencing earlier, would not be taking up space in that communal living space, thus providing more elbow room to ease congestion for occupiers to use that space. And when considering that in the round, because as I said many times to members, we do not do planning by numbers, we are satisfied that this overall creates a reasonable living environment, notwithstanding that technical numerical failure against the guidance provided in the HMO SPD. You can see on this drawing the bike store is in the rear of the property and bikes will be taken through the property to access it.
Thank you. Thank you. Deputation?
I firstly just wanted to answer a question that Councillor Smythe brought up regarding the bins. So when they go from 6 to a 7-person property, the bins are upgraded from 240 litres to a 360. So still 2 bins, just 50% larger. They're not massively different in size. They're a little bit bigger, a little bit wider, but still quite comfortably fit in the forecourt. So this application is for a change of use from 6 persons to 7-person HMO. It was submitted in July 2020 and has been waiting for determination for over 3 years. Due to repeated promises to determine the applicant lost the chance to appeal when the application exceeded 6 months' delay. The applicant has now been in the position of one of the longest delays in planning determinations that I have dealt with to date. This property was designed and built to meet the 28 square metre requirement of communal space required by a previous HMO supplementary document. As the new HMO supplementary document requires 34 square metre of communal area when the bedrooms don't meet the 10 square metre size requirement, the applicant is proposing to repurpose a shower room on the ground floor into a utility room. This would then house the washing machine and tumble dryers away from the kitchen and therefore reduce the intensity of use on the communal area. This would result in a combined shared communal space of 34 square metres. A separate laundry room is also a desirable feature to tenants within the shared living household. The property then provides 2 further bathrooms and a separate WC which meets the requirement for sanitary space for 6 to 10 persons. And as this application is only for 7 persons only, again, I believe this is above requirement. All of the bedrooms exceed the 6.5 square metre requirement when providing 34 square metres. The application is fully compliant with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan, and the plan officer is recommending this fully compliant application for approval today. I ask you all to fully support this recommendation. To refuse such a fully compliant application will only result in increased workload, time and cost for all those involved in subsequently taking this to appeal. Thank you.
As a matter of process, could I ask about on page 43, on my papers at least, I don't understand. I mean, we're talking about 10 metres squared required. Either I wasn't listening properly, or I've got it wrong, or I'm confused in my head, which is quite often.
Is this about the bedrooms?
Yeah, I mean, it says required standard 6.51, area provided 11.71. Is this all correct?
Well, yes, it is. Came up in the pre-agenda as well. We've been trying to find different ways of expressing this to assist members' understanding, so we'll have another go. Because it is somewhat confusing. You have 2 bedroom standards. You have one, 6.51. That is the minimum size for a single bedroom. Doubles obviously are larger. We'll come on to that later on the agenda. But you can, if you choose to over-provide and make an excessively large bedroom, i.e. more than 10 square metres, then we do allow for smaller communal spaces, because that's given you, an area where you can sit and relax in your bedroom above and beyond that minimum required to do the usual activities one does in a bedroom. So consequently, there are one standard, 6.51, but we do, that would then allow and will require our normal standard, 34 square metres. If you choose to over-provide the bedroom sizes, you can have a smaller communal space. Or, to put it a different way, if you provide a smaller communal space, 22.5, which is why we've listed that as the standard, then your requirement for bedrooms goes up to 10. So that's why you see some listed with 10, and because it's 22.5, and some listed as 6.51 because it's 34.
Okay. Members, in terms of, do we think this requires planning permission? Councillor Hunt?
Definitely. No question that these need to be looked at. I mean, on the grounds that the change of use from multiple occupant class 4 to a 7-person, with the lounge changing into a bedroom, and issues around residential amenity, as we've heard from the officer described just now, the potential effect on the future occupiers and the intense use of the building within this highly built up area for, at least for HMOs. I think we heard it was 43.8%, and the cumulative impact and the on parking, noise, waste, storage and amenity and the SPA means that we should be considering this matter this morning.
Thank you, Lee. Anybody wish to second? Councillor Dent, I think, raised first. Okay, those in favour of us discussing this matter? Okay.
9 votes unanimous.
Thank you, members. Questions about this application? Councillor Dent.
Yeah, I think there's a few. The laundry room, in between 2 bedrooms, that's going to be healthy for them if they decide to do their laundry at night. The kitchen. You have 2 hobs, a double sink, and a fridge, two fridge freezers, and a worktop that is approximately 1.5 metres long. That has only got usable space for about 1 metre. I'm no chef. That is going to be difficult to prepare food in that sort of environment. So the combined living space is, what, 5 square metres below. If they add even more worktop space in there, it's going to become even less. So that is a bit of a concern that that kitchen is not adequate for 7 people to cook on.
If you could make that into a question, it would be brilliant. Is there a quick...
Just about to say, I can't remember if we have deputations on this one, if we already had it, haven't we? The deputies will often tell you quite quickly that the illustrations provided are that. They're illustrations. Obviously, kitchen fitters will come in and they'll work with the private sector housing who actually have the knowledge to make these judgments. There are minimum sizes for every element of a kitchen, so for both a 6 and a 7 bed. So just to stress that, it doesn't change. So if they're licensed for 6 bed, they don't need to change the kitchen. It is a minimum work surface of 2.5 metres by 0.5 metres, so they'll have to provide that. I haven't measured this illustrative drawing, but they would need to obviously tweak the layout to provide that. That would be part of that. We don't concern ourselves with the layouts of the interior rooms as a planning committee, so that would not be a legitimate grounds to try and withhold plan permission.
No, I totally agree with that. It's just the fact that you've got a laundry room stuck between 2. It's just a statement, basically. But, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Shah.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, overall comment, this is not about this specific case. Most of the cases we are looking into, they are over 10%, and this one is 43.75%. So the comment is, if we add another person or another bedroom for another person to be added to 6, make them 7, the 43.75% will be increased, means not the overall the property, but obviously the people living there it will affect the facilities provided within the property and also within the area. So my concern is if it's already over and over, why we should be adding more people to the same property and to make it even burden for the property, facilities and for the area. Thank you.
Well, indeed, I don't. Ian, do you want to explain why you don't believe that?
So yes, your adopted standards are identical for 6 or 7 bedrooms. The point of fact, there is one more person when you add 7 people, so there would be one more person utilising that space. I'm not going to dispute the arithmetic, but your adopted standards are in making a judgment that 6 people can live as an HMO as comfort in the same space as 7 people can live as an HMO in the same degree of comfort. That is what you've adopted. That is therefore what we apply as officers. So in this case, what the applicant has done, and I'll just see if I can pull up the drawings for you, they have tried to improve the quality of the living space compared to what one might have done. So while, of course, the 6 occupants had the benefit of a kitchen diner and the separate lounge, they've now moved it to circumstances... Oh, sorry, I've skipped on to the next one, haven't I? There we go. So the six occupants have a bit of a kitchen diner and a separate lounge. They have now repurposed what was the ensuite bathroom for bedroom 6, so that person is now sharing the shower room rather than having additional shower rooms, and they have had that benefit of a utility room. So obviously the future residents lost a lounge but gained a utility room. Pros and cons around that, but overall, so that degree of communal space is not, that shared communal space that is the main room has not been materially altered, and that nevertheless still meets your obligations to provide a reasonable living environment in the professional opinion of officers, because we feel it is a notable benefit to have that separate utility room. If members do not feel that, and they feel that the 29.21 square metre living space is inadequate for the occupants, then plan permission can be refused.
Questions, Chair, is that right? I have a question about whether that is actually the location of the bike store just outside the French windows leading from the communal area into the garden. What happened? I mean, subject to not using it after hours, as it were, and keeping neighbours awake all through the night. Many people living in HMOs of this nature like the fact there's a back garden to sit in and to sometimes do some quiet reading and study. And would they really have to sit between, in a tiny space between the bike store and the back door?
It is my understanding that is well, they've submitted that as an accurate drawing. That's where they propose to build, if they haven't already, the bike store. Yes, the majority of the outdoor living space for this property is the narrow corridor in the gunnel, which is less beneficial than it would. But again, the bike storage requirements is the same for 6 and 7. So they should have provided a 4-bike store in that space, and that is the only space if that is the full extent of it. In any case, so that again wouldn't be a reasonable ground to withhold plan permission.
I mean, I'm merely pointing this out because I think we do need plans that show the garden and the location of the bike store as well as the existence of the bike store. But thank you for your answer. When we come on to comments, I'll have a further comment to make.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon Jackson.
Yes, Chair, thanks. Could we go back to the plan, Ian, that you had up? Ground floor, the bit I'm interested in is where the bins are. So it's underneath the bit that says, oh yeah, there we are. So looking at that, there's space for 1 bin. I don't see where you put your recycling.
This drawing has 2 bins shown there, the 2 squares, one behind the other. Yeah.
So to get to your recycling, you have to pull out your black bin and move it to be able, so how would you, so you have one behind the other. All right, it looks dodgy to me, but others think it's all right. Okay, thank you.
Comments, members? Judith, Councillor Smythe first.
I would like to propose that we refuse this on the grounds of insufficient space for the combined living space. I can see that if you add together the 29.21 metres squared shown as combined living space together with the ground floor utility room at 4.79 metres squared, you do actually just get to 34 square metres. But the thought of people socialising in the ground floor utility room with machines buzzing would therefore make the living accommodation for particularly room 7, but also room 6, so very difficult to cope with because of the noise, that I think that is sufficient ground for refusing, given that the headline here is that the common combined living space is too small to meet our published standards. And I have thought about this long and hard. I just think that this is too small for 7 people, and particularly because if the only place they can put a small chair out in the fresh air is, you know, slap it facing the back of a bike shed, that's even more less space for people to sit out on a, you know, quietly on a sunny afternoon in an acceptable way.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, again, I'm with respect to Karen. You know, if this was to go through, the net effect of what would have happened this morning is creating a new HMO, combining 3 areas, so the area of Montgomery Road, Margate Road, I think it was Darlington Road, and now Cleveland Road. If this were to go through, we would have added to that part of Southsea, which is, we've heard already, oversubscribed by between 47% and 25% of HMOs. We would have added, cumulatively added, another HMO because it would be, it's equal to a 4-bedroom HMO. That's what would have happened. So that's been my argument all the way through, that cumulative, insidious increase, drop by drop. So I'm happy to second Councillor Smythe. I happen to think that it needs beefing up a bit. The internal layout of the building does not create a reasonable living area for the intended occupiers. I think that needs to go in. It's more or less what Councillor Smythe is saying, but I think it needs to be a bit more specific. And indeed, she touches upon the garden. There's no amenity in the garden, as she says, is just facing. So the residential amenities at this place are really poor. It is the best or the worst example of squeezing in way too much. It's an overdevelopment in this property. And again, it's not normal to have these bedrooms in front rooms. I know it's happened, but it's not normal in a neighbourhood to go past and see people's beds and people sleeping in their beds and all this sort of thing. That's not like a proper residential area. But, as I said just now, the horse is bolted on Southsea. And Councillor Shah talked about it just now, that we normally consider this 10% rule. But that's up in Copner, Baffins and so on. But what we see here is that permitted development perhaps is kicking in and is encouraging developers, and I don't blame them, to circumnavigate our 10% rule by adding on another room in a lounge, or to use permitted development to go up into the roof space or out the back to add on more and more rooms in areas that are already subscribed by up to 50% of houses already in multiple occupancy. So that cumulative impact is very important for me, and that's why I'm sitting here making lots of comments about it, because I don't think it's good for mixed and balanced communities to be continually adding bedrooms to houses that are already overdeveloped and areas that are already oversubscribed by houses in multiple occupation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Vernon Jackson.
Thank you. I would share colleagues' concerns. I think for a detail I am concerned about the second floor, where the drawing appears to show that to get to the shower, which is the square with the X in it, you have to climb over the loo. And I don't think that is very good as a place for people to live. But having to climb over a loo to be able to get into the shower, I think, is not a good standard of living. But I'd also, colleagues, I don't think we have any choice in this. Our standards are absolutely clear. And when people come forward with developments which meet our guidelines, I'm happy to say that we accept them. When this clearly doesn't, then we don't have, there's no choice for us. I think the idea of having a laundry room, which people could use at night, and you know how long a tumble dryer goes on for, or a wash machine on a 2.5 hour cycle. It's not the same as being next door to a shower or a loo, which might be used for a couple of minutes. That really does provide really very, very poor quality accommodation for people. And this clearly is being set up as a slum for the future. So I don't think we have any choice but to turn this down because the SPD is absolutely clear on this. And the idea you have to climb over a loo to get you to your shower is I think, not something that we should support.
No, not really. Yes, there is a loo you have to walk past to get into there. It's not an unusual configuration, in my professional opinion.
So you can't walk past it. It's right out. It's right out. There's a wall right on either side of the loo.
Yes, I think you're confusing the WC, which the shower is accessed from the shower room above it. It's a L-shaped room.
Okay, so you have to slunk round the edge of the other loo.
You can choose your own language, Councillor Jackson. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the table. Is there anything else from anyone else?
No seconder yet.
You have, yeah.
We've got queues of people seconding it,
Yes.
Judith.
Okay. Well, if that's all we've got, those in favour to refuse planning permission, please indicate.
That's a unanimous refusal of planning permission.
Mr. Chair, it also shows why Councillor Vernon Jackson is correct to bring these to the committee.
And it also demonstrates we consider each of these on their own merits.
Chair, one of the things, could I just ask, it's very helpful in future reports. I couldn't see when this was given planning permission to be an HMO in that report. It would be a very helpful thing to have that in the planning history, if it's possible in future.
Is that possible?
Indeed, if it is possible, it's included in the report. Yeah.
Sorry, Ian, where is it? I couldn't see.
If it is possible, it is included. It's not always possible. So
Okay.
it's usually the planning history is obviously detailed at paragraph 1.7 onwards. So it depends what details you hold as a council.
Just to add to that, Chair, we have also requested today, before you came, Councillor Jackson, that we should have the before and after plans on this report too. Thank you.
Okay.
And so if we don't know when this was given planning permission to be an HMO, do we know that it's a legal HMO? It might be licensed, but we've often said here something might have licensing approval but not planning approval. Do we know that this was has planning permission to be an HMO if we have no record of it? I know it says it is but it doesn't say when. And Ian is saying that we put it in when we know, but in this case it's not in. Therefore, we have no idea when it became an HMO, and I'm concerned by that.
You may well be, Councillor Vernon Jackson. Say it never got planning permission to be an HMO, but equally it's never got planning permission to be a house either. It's not a farmer's field, I can say that with confidence. At some point this building was built, and at some point it changed from being a dwelling to an HMO. We do know it's been licensed, it is currently licensed from 2020. No one has raised any doubt that it is a long-established HMO, and clearly if it was became an HMO decades ago, there would be no record of it. If there was doubt, if someone, for example, in letter of representation said this was a family home last week, what's going on, then we would have to do further forensic investigation to establish that. But no, we are obliged to take the assertion of the applicant as truth if there is no evidence to the contrary.
Shall we move on? Maybe a
I
conversation
find that
outside.
incredibly disturbing,
Well,
that we're relying on the honesty of property developers to tell us that this has been an HMO or not an HMO when we have no, okay, I think this is something we need to look at further, but relying on the honesty of property developers, I think is worrying.
A conversation out with this meeting. Okay, St Pyrons.
Thank you. 49 St Pyrons. This is an application where, again, plan permission has been granted for a dual use C3, C4, but it's still under construction, so it's not yet been used. So it is a change of use from a C3 to a 7-bed HMO. So plan permission is required. We do not need to trouble ourselves with that point. This is a relatively straightforward application for an HMO. As you can see, it's an area with relatively few HMOs in the surrounding area, so well below the 10%. It's a lower density part of the city with slightly larger dwellings. So what we have is a change with a number of extensions and alterations to create a 7-bed HMO within this floor space with a 34 square metre communal space because the bedroom sizes vary between 8.61 and 12.32, so fully compliant with your both house mix and communal area policies and all other relevant policies. Plan permission is recommended for approval.
Thank you. Deputation.
Briefly, Councillor Vernon Jackson's question regarding the previous one was granted approval in 2012 with historic use. Also, kitchens, I just wanted to say, are shown on plans just to purely indicate how the property and communal space could be used. They're then fully designed in conjunction with licensing requirements, very specific guidelines on worktop space, cupboard space, electrical sockets, etc. So with this application, it's a change of use from a Class C3 to a 7-person house in multiple occupation. A previous application for a C4 for 6 persons has been approved for this property. Therefore, the fallback position for the applicant is 6 persons. So in reality today, you're considering the addition of just 1 person. The property provides 7 bedrooms ranging from 7.92 to 12.46. These all exceed the 6.5 requirement. When bedrooms are under 10 square metres, the space standards dictate a required communal area of 34 square metres, and this property also meets that requirement. All of the 7 bedrooms benefit from an ensuite shower room, which again is above requirement. This HMO will be finished to a high standard, will be required to have weekly fire alarm checks and will be inspected regularly. This will ensure any possible issues will be promptly dealt with. The property will be professionally managed, and it would not be within the applicant's interest to allow the property to be poorly tenanted and poorly managed due to the time and money spent on renovating the property. The application complies with policy PCS 17, PCS 20 and PCS 23 of the local plan, and also complies with the Housing and Multiple Occupation Supplementary Planning Document 2019. The Planning Officer has recommended this fully compliant application for approval today, and I ask you all to fully support this recommendation. To refuse such a fully compliant application will only result in increased workload, time and costs for all those involved in subsequently taking this to appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so this does require planning permission. Members, questions? Councillor Smythe.
Just a question to refresh my memory. Is this the property that we went to see prior to giving an approval? There were 2 in St Piers Avenue and we did a site visit to one of them, and I just want to know whether this was the one. I think it was.
It may well have been. Unfortunately, I can't recall, and the case officer is away on a training session, so I can't check with him. You'll have to rely on your own recollection. Apologies.
It was me and I think Councillor Vernon Jackson who went. I think this is the same one as we went to see it, and then it was approved, because it was approved in 2023. Thank you for trying to help me improve my memory on that. There were 2 in the same street at the same time.
And from memory, this came to the committee for approval, and we looked at it and said, they've clearly built it to make it into 7 bedrooms, and they are being deeply dishonest by applying for 6, and they'll come back for 7 later. And of course, there were howls of indignation that such suggestions should be made, and we're back here.
We approved it on the March this year, so I think it was the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not relevant, but I just
No, but it's...
None of this is relevant to our decision, but it just wanted to make sure I was thinking of the right thing. Thank you.
But, Councillor Smythe, I think you're, through you, Chair, it is a lesson for us all to learn about developers.
Okay. Comments? Go, you've got a question.
Which is the additional room? I beg your pardon, I've been lazy. Sorry, Mr Maguire.
In the drawing pack, probably easier to do there. It's bedroom number 7, so it's the vertically rectangle room in the centre of the ground floor.
And presumably before, what was it?
It was a lounge.
It was a lounge, okay, yeah.
Comments? Councillor Vernon Jackson.
To ask a question, on the drawings, and I'm sorry, Mr Maguire, if I've missed it, where's the bike store?
So not showing this drawings, the bike store is in the rear garden. Well,
and there is enough space to be able to put it in there?
Would say bike stores take very little space. There are a number of new apparatus you can do, vertical hanging, all these kind of things. Yes, there is adequate space.
Okay, thank you.
Chair?
Please.
I also have a bicycle-related question. So obviously the story is the usual, the bike is coming through the property. I have my own views on that. Because I see 2 pinch points on this that I want to understand. One might be related to the way the units are laid out. You know, is that a credible width for a bicycle to come through? And the second one is my understanding of the drawing. So as I see opposite bedroom 7, there's a door and then there's the stairs pointing the other way. The dotted line where it's white, is that actually a solid barrier? I.e., am I expected to be turning my bicycle in 90 degrees through that? And if people have seen there, is that credible?
So through the kitchen space, yes, there's obviously a pinch point between the projecting, I think they're called peninsulas in the kitchen for the breakfast bar there. Yes, that is an adequate space to get a bicycle through. A little bit tricky, but again, it's an illustrative drawing, not a confirmed one. They'll have to settle that with the private sector housing. And yes, you're quite right, that stairwell is a non-solid space. You wouldn't be able to get a person, let alone a bicycle, through that. The stair starts at the south of this picture, the bottom of this picture, and rises up. So clearly they will have to have a clear space underneath that rising staircase to actually access that kitchen door, and that would be the layout. So that dotting is just showing where the staircase is going up above head height.
Certainly when we visited, that was the stairs go up steeply enough for you to walk on.
Councillor Hunt.
Ms Maguire, what have they done to enable this greatly expanded communal space? Is that at the top, is that an extension under permitted development? Near the number 6, on page 50.
Yes, that is a rear extension. I don't see any planning history that says it's gained planning permission, so that will be a permitted development extension, that rear projection. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought as much.
To clarify, if it is the one, well, it is the one we saw. There was an extension there. The new build bit is identified as quite a large projection from the back, but in fact, not all of it is a new footprint. There was an old extension extending about halfway down that area.
If I can just add to that, so for this property in 2021, a prior notification, which is how you get larger permitted development, was made for the construction of a single-storey rear extension out to that maximum 6-metre depth. As Councillor Smythe says, there was already a BIF extension, so that obviously all factors into those numbers. So yes, they had an opportunity using the prior notification process to make a quite substantive rear extension, which is how they managed to achieve the 34 square metres.
Comments?
I mean, what we're seeing here is the changes in March that the government brought in is in increasing permitted development. And I don't know how far this goes into the garden, but what it has enabled is the additional communal space, and therefore to squeeze in the 7th bedroom. And it goes back to how we started this morning. There's the government wants to incrementally, bit by bit, increase the opportunity for more people to live in, to have somewhere to live. And I get that, but for me, it's just to do it in this fashion, this insidious fashion, because they have not built enough houses. That is all there is to it, and rents are sky high, there are not enough homes, and so it's being achieved to a certain degree in this way. And the permitted development rights, which changed in March, have enabled this to happen. Having said, and that's the fact, but having said that, when you look at it, there's nothing wrong with the layout. It's only 2.8% of HMO in this area. There is absolutely nothing in this particular matter that I think would concern us. I suspect those people who are going to live in there, if you look at the layout, are going to be quite happy living there. There's a lot of room for them to move about in. There's plenty of loos and showers, and this is one that if we have to have a shared accommodation, and it does serve a useful purpose in this city, with sky-high rents and lack of accommodation, this is one that I will support.
Are you moving the recommendations?
Beg your pardon, yes.
You are, okay. All right, thank you. Any other comments? I will second the officer's recommendation so we can make some progress. Unless there is anything else from anyone else, we'll move to the vote. Those in favour of moving the officer's recommendations to grant planning permission with the conditions attached? Against? Abstentions?
Again, I'm missing someone. I made that. Oh, sorry,
Councillor
Smith's not voting. No, that's absolutely fine then. So it's 7 votes in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you. Bedhampton Road.
55 Bedhampton Road. This is again a change of use from what is a C3 dwelling, because the previous consent granted in January this year has not yet been implemented through occupation. So it's a change of use from a C3 dwelling into a 7-bed HMO, part of the city with very low numbers of HMOs, though this obviously is already one under the consenting process. Previously they illustrated that central room on the right of the left-hand image to be a lounge. That is becoming a bedroom, the bedroom number 7 accordingly. All the room sizes are laid out in page 57 on my papers, paragraph 5.6, and they all meet the necessary 10-metre threshold, allowing the just 22.5 metre threshold. The only variation is in fact bathroom number 1, which is just over 3 square metres to be a bathroom, and you can see it there in the middle image. It should be 3.74 square metres, so it is 73 square centimetres, if you will, smaller than it should be. Now, clearly, if they fitted it out with a shower rather than a bath, it would be larger than it needed to be. So we're not concerned about that as officers. And again, private sector housing in the licensing process would consider whether leaving the bath, if they've already installed it, is acceptable and it provides adequate space, because obviously that does turn on the shape of the room as well, or whether that should be removed and replaced with the shower. A planning condition is not considered to be necessary by officers. So the recommendation is to grant planning permission for the approved plans as submitted, and the other recommended conditions at the end of the report.
Do you have an urgent comment, or can it wait?
Just to pick up this isn't a comment, it's a question. I was surprised to see that that comment about that. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always thought it's been the total room area that's been measured for any bathroom or shower. It seems to me that this implies that it's just the floor area. Well, why would there be any different to have a shower or a bath in there? I've simply never seen that before, and I don't understand it.
So it has, throughout your process, has been you have a different standard for shower rooms and bathrooms. You're measuring the whole room in doing that. The reason for that is, of course, that a bathroom has more of its space taken up by the bath than would be a shower cubicle. obviously different designs are available. So it does turn on the amount of usable floor space that is left over to have your toilet, to have your sink, to step out of the shower or bath and dry yourself off. So that it does go to that logic, but it is the whole room size, and those two standards have been part of your guidance for quite some time.
Thank you very much. I'd never realised that, and I'm very grateful for the explanation. That makes sense. Whatever we decide about it, it makes sense. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hill.
Just quickly, the owners of the property have put together a pack that they'd like me to give to every member of the committee. Are you happy for me to do that, please? Can I pass them on, pass them around? That's all right. Apologies about the formatting. We've got someone using an Apple and someone else using a computer, so the formatting's not perfect.
I'm sure committee members will want to have a look through. I'm not sure we're going to go through it in full detail, but do you want to give your deputy?
I'll try and keep two within the time, but there's a couple of points I wanted to make that are general as well, and obviously we don't actually ever get the chance to make any general points other than during a deputation. So firstly, thank you very much for providing me the opportunity to provide this deputation today. My business has converted and operates a significant number of well-managed HMOs within the city, and the sympathetic conversion of HMOs is our primary business. As a business and as individuals, we're extremely passionate about providing high-quality living accommodation for the people of this city. I understand that HMOs in particular are a hugely emotive subject, particularly for neighbouring residents, and I sympathise somewhat. People can be concerned about the unknown, and I accept that they haven't necessarily had previous experience of our business. To be very, very clear, all of the works that are carried out to this property were carried out under permitted development. That is to say that they do not themselves require planning permission. The majority of the works have now been completed, and you'll note that this case is a C3 to C4 sui gen rather than a C4 to sui gen. In my opinion, this is just a nuance of the processes. There's actually no way this property would now be used as a C4 property anymore. It already has 6 bedrooms laid out according to the plans. You'll also notice that these plans are, or if you get the chance to look, exactly the same as those that were submitted earlier. It's just that the lounge is now a bedroom rather than a lounge. So a couple of points that I've picked up on from previous points from committee members. First things first, yes, technically, the bathroom would be undersized as a bathroom. If you're happy for it to be a bathroom, brilliant, we'll make it a bathroom. I think it's better as a bathroom. If you'd prefer it to be a shower room and you're going to refuse planning if it's a bath rather than a shower, we'll make it a shower room, but I do think it'd be beneficial for the property to have a bath. So, you know, I definitely don't want to go through all of the administrative process of resubmitting purely for a change between a bath and a shower. Happy to take the guidance of the committee on that. One of the points I picked up earlier, and I'm sure and I know full well it wouldn't have been meant in this way, but one of the things I did see here was where a application meets our criteria, we will accept it. I'd love it if that could be changed to we will support it. Because for me, it's really important that we have HMOs in this city that are supported as long as they're compliant and if they provide the right accommodation for the people of the city. And to simply say we'll accept it doesn't really, in my opinion, give us the importance on housing young people that need or must live in a HMO because of the relative cost of other types of accommodation. You will see on here that the layout on the top floor could actually be improved. So on the top floor, the rear bedroom is 11.56 meters squared, whereas actually it only needs to be 10 square meters. We have actually made that slightly smaller so that it is just over 10 meters squared, which actually allows the en-suites to move slightly towards that room, and that therefore makes the front bedroom, which is 10.3 square meters, slightly bigger. We've also changed the orientation of the en-suite in that that room, so it runs front to back of the house rather than across the house. What that means is that that room is significantly larger. It's around 12 metres squared itself, and it also makes the room an awful lot more usable. I don't think it's a material point because you've actually already passed that bedroom as it is under the 6-bedroom application, but I do think it's important to demonstrate that we are trying to improve these, and sometimes during construction there are points at which these things can be improved. Building control have looked at it and they're really happy with it, so it seems sensible to implement that change. If you need any more information on that, then please ask me. So, also, without being confrontational, I think the statement of it's not normal to have all rooms in the house as a bedroom undoubtedly is one way of giving an opinion on that. Whereas for me, that's an awful lot about how it's presented, and I completely understand the point. I do understand the point, and I respect the point. However, what we're saying is the house that hasn't been extended with an extension to the rear of it, which has a separate dining room, that kitchen is probably the combined living space between the second reception room and the rear kitchen living room probably will be less than the 22 square metres. So when we extend that, then actually you're not comparing two things that are like with like, because ultimately, yes, technically there's only one room that's not a bedroom, but actually it's significantly bigger, at least double the size that it normally would be in a C3 dwelling house. One of the points in terms today that's come up an awful lot has been about bike storage and going through the property. So this particular property has been designed with a specialist HMO interior design company, and they've put hard-wearing durable floor through the communal area and the ground floor hallway to ensure that it is durable. We can have bikes sort of travel through it, etc. We also have a weekly cleaner in the property. There is gardens cycle storage that has to be submitted to, which I'm assuming you will make a condition to be submitted to planners to be approved. Luckily, we also have a number of our contractors who actually cycle to work, and therefore throughout of the construction of this property, we've been testing the theory of bringing bikes through, because we've had to make sure they were secure at the back of the property whilst people were working on the house. One of the things we as a company have implemented or are implementing is plaques outside the property so that neighbours can quickly report any problems and we can resolve them quickly. One point I wanted to make around the cumulative impact of properties, without taking up my whole 6 minutes, is that the database was commenced in 2011. I personally believe it's relatively accurate on properties which have or are HMOs. What it doesn't allow for is that an awful lot of properties that were, i.e. have been HMOs, have now been sold and are converted back into family houses. If you do a simple Rightmove search, you'll see there are an awful lot of poor quality, rubbish HMOs for sale. They will end up being family homes, undoubtedly. The reason I think that's a really important point is because we keep saying the cumulative effect of more and more and more rooms. Actually, I bet if you net it off, there's significantly less rooms than there would be on the HMO database because of the fact that an awful lot of them have been sold. But I'm not sure at the moment there's a measure for saying, all right, which ones of these have been sold off? And actually, they probably only come to attention when we go round to reissuing the licence, which lasts for 5 years, etc., etc. So, adding on the rooms, yes, it makes it profitable, but a lot of these houses wouldn't be profitable without, especially because of the points Carrie-Anne's made around Section 24, landlord tax changes, significant amounts more things that have been presented to landlords as challenges which ultimately cost money. I know we don't like to think that typically a lot, not necessarily the planning committee, but an awful lot of individuals don't like to think that developers should make a profit, but they aren't a charity and it does need to be a profitable venture to rent out properties, and adding rooms is one of the ways, compliantly is one of the ways of doing so. Many of us are acutely aware of recent increase in interest rates as well as legislative pressures which have driven an awful lot of landlords out of buy-to-let ownership. This has had an unavoidable impact on increasing rents across the majority of property types, especially one-bed flats. I would say around 50% of our tenants now are coming from one-bed flats into HMO rooms because it is unaffordable for them to continue to rent a one-bed flat. One-bed flat, £1,000 a month plus bills is sort of £1,700 a month. An HMO room from us, even one of our highest spec rooms, will probably be around £800 a month, so there's a significant saving. Tenant 1 who has an HMO room, tenant 2 who has a one-bed flat, ultimately the difference in 3 years' time is potentially the difference between them becoming a homeowner or not, with the amount of money they could save by renting an HMO room. So it is a huge difference. So, local statistics show that only 7% of HMO tenants have cars. I believe one of the most important statements made in support of this application comes from Robert Neve. Robert Neve is the council's expert for transport planning. His response, as the expert, consultant on transport and off-road parking, says, no traffic assessment has been provided. However, the small scale of the development, I am satisfied the proposal would not have a material impact on the function of a local highway network. Portsmouth City's Council's standards SPD sets the level of off-road parking facilities for new developments within the city and place requirement of 2 off-road spaces for Class 4 HMOs with 4 or more bedrooms. However, it is also noted the expected level of demand of parking for a Class C3 dwelling house would also be 2 off-road parking spaces. This application is fully compliant with the HMO SPD as well as with the Article 4 Directive and PCS 20. Currently, obviously, there are less than 10% HMOs in this locality. One of my frustrations actually here is that
I mean, if anybody here should be able to give a deputation in 6 minutes, it's you, but we're straying into 9 minutes.
I'll be very quick. Fine. One of the frustrations here is that one of the councillors has called this into committee isn't here, and 2 of the objections that bring this over the number needed to come to committee are from the same household, as well as a submission from me that I didn't submit. So there's been a fictitious one there submitted that's brought this to committee when it shouldn't have been. Thank you very much. I believe this application is fully compliant, and I'd ask you to go with the officer's recommendation to approve it. Thank you.
Okay. This does require planning permission, so members, questions on this application? Councillor Vernon Jackson.
Sorry, Chair. Do you want me to read out that note from Ben Swan?
It's a note rather than a deputation, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, we'll
that's fine.
yeah, we'll take Councillor. Yeah, okay.
You did ask me.
All right, okay. He's not able to. Okay, we'll come to you.
The deputation has suggested that if we are wanting that to be a shower room, not a bathroom, that they would happily do that. My understanding is we have to judge the application on what is in front of us, and we can't vary it. So, Ian, can I say, if they rip the bath out and it's not as shown on the plans, then we're okay? Are we allowed to do that?
There are several answers to that. If you wanted to amend a scheme within reasonable parameters, you can do that through a planning condition. Requiring a cycle store is just that. If there are cycle stores not showing, you're saying, okay, but you must do a cycle store. So you could make that change if it was necessary. Professional advice is it's not necessary in this case because it does appear to be a pretty adequate bathroom anyway, albeit slightly below standard, and they will make those judgments having taken professional advice from the project housing team. If they then build that out as a shower room, not a bathroom, I don't think any sensible person would suggest that is not building in accordance with the approved plan, so consequently that would be equally satisfactory. Or they could put it in a bathroom and then later take it out for a shower if they were required to do so by the licensing department, for example.
That's very helpful, thank you.
Councillor Smith, sorry, I know, yes, Councillor Swan is unable to be here today, so if you've got a statement that you'd like to read.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just a note came in to Ben Swan late last night, and he contacted yourself and other members of the committee and planning officers. It was just a note came in to say...
Can I just get a... Sorry to stop. Can I get a legal ruling on this? I mean, none of us has seen it. Was it sent in time? Should it be read out? I'm sure it'd be all right.
Yeah,
but I mean,
comfortable.
I need to know this.
Is it sidestepping your deputation procedure, Ian?
It's happening all the time.
Ian?
So the Chairman and I were actually discussing this earlier today. It's in the discretion of the Chairman. So obviously Councillor Smith is a member of this committee. He can make any contribution he wishes. So he can, if he chooses to, make a representation, including wordings from others, that is his privilege to do so. Clearly, it is important that Councillor Lithium, making any statement that is authored by somebody else, to explain, which I believe he's already done, why that is the case, to demonstrate, if he feels he needs to do more than he has already done, that he is nevertheless coming to this matter with an open mind and without predetermination. I am concerned, I will say this is a general issue, and we will be discussing this constitutionally outside this meeting, that obviously we are seeing a habit of written deputations which isn't in your constitution and does, for example, place the deputy in a difficult position because a large statement which could contain a number of accusations as assured that he's unable to respond to, that if it had been made properly at the time of representation, could have been commented upon by the applicant. So it does somewhat sublime the process. But as long as but board members are able to make comments at the end of the deputation process, if they had attended in person, and planning committee members can make any comment they wish. So it's a matter of judgment and discretion, and obviously important that the only member that does read it out is nevertheless maintaining an open mind and coming without bias or predetermination.
I don't doubt that that will be the case, and I don't care either way, quite frankly, but I just want it done properly, because I could bring notes and deputies from every single member of my group and read them out one after the other. And so we have to have some kind of consensus on this, some kind of decision to be made, because it is becoming...
Yes, and it does appear to be becoming more and more frequent. As Ian said, it's a conversation we had earlier, but I think for this meeting, let's proceed, and we'll think about it outside the meeting.
To be honest, having heard Ian speak about the process, I would be inclined to advise that you don't read the note on this case, and try to direct people through the proper channels as the first resort and last resort.
Can I just put on record that I wouldn't be happy with it either?
Well,
So if this goes wrong and it goes to appeal and something like this comes up, we could get into a little bit of hot water.
Okay, I'm going to take 2 minutes, 2-minute break. Okay.